National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
I grew up around blindness. It was on my mother's side of the family. It goes back some 13 generations. But I was the first male in a long line of females to get it. Hi, my name is Everette Bacon. I am president of the NFB of Utah affiliate. I had the typical partial vision growing up. And of course, at that time, just like many have had, I had an eye doctors that said, oh, you're not gonna go totally blind. We think you'll keep some vision, even though everybody else that had it went totally blind. And unfortunately, my family bought into that. They kind of listened to the doctors and thought, well, he's a male and we haven't seen a male have this, so he's gonna go blind. He's not gonna go blind like we all did. Well, I did. I went totally blind in my 30s. I don't have any vision now at all. And so, but going back to when I was a kid, I was definitely like a lot of the other kids with low vision. They decided to make me use large print, magnification, and I struggled through that. I never learned Braille. I never learned how to use a cane or learned any other alternative skills. It was just more of the try to make it bigger, try to make it bolder, and hope that I could see it. And that worked for some time until my mid-20s, when it really started to change. And then I realized that I was definitely going to go totally blind. I was married though at the time when this started to really happen, and I was married to a wonderful woman who's now a doctor, but she was in medical school at the time, so it was my job to put her through. So I was working, and I was working for a company called Blockbuster Video. I'm sure many of you heard of that. They don't no longer exist anymore. But I worked for them, and I was a store manager and then became a district manager. I managed 10 stores in the city of Houston. And I was doing it with just regular accommodations like magnification and things like that, but it was getting harder, and I knew it was getting harder, and I knew I was going to have to make some adjustments. And so I asked the Blockbuster for some other accommodations like Zoom text on the computer and a new bigger CCTV that I could try to use at the time. And I asked if I could do things a little differently in my store. It wasn't very smart for me to be on the sales floor because it was a small store that I worked in normally, and it was tight fitting around the shelves, and I didn't want to bump into customers, and I didn't want to do that, but I definitely loved helping customers. I just wanted to do it from behind the counter, and some conflicts happened with the management. They wanted me out on the floor more. That's what they wanted, all the managers. And basically I asked for some reasonable accommodations, and a month later I was terminated. I was terminated because they said that I wasn't doing the job that they wanted, and I was a fraudulent employee, and which was preposterous because they just gave me an award 4 months before that for outstanding service and outstanding store for the entire city of Houston. I had the third busiest store in Houston. The people that shopped at my store were like President George H.W. Bush and his wife and other famous people that live around Houston. And so I was well known and I was well liked, and I never had an issue until I asked for an accommodation. Well, that was pretty traumatic. My wife and my mother-in-law at the time, they just sent out an email blast to a bunch of different email addresses saying, don't shop at Blockbuster Video. They discriminate against blind people and visually impaired people, as they called it at the time. And I really had heard of the NFB, but had never had anything to do with them. Didn't know much about them, their history or anything. I knew they were militant because people just told me that's what the NFB was militant. That's all I really knew. And I never bothered to look into it because at that time, I was one of those blind people that said, I don't need that, I'm different. Well, one of those emails got to the office of Scott LeBar and LeBar Law. And he found my contact information and replied to me, set up an appointment to see me, and lo and behold, he took my case. And he was the first person to really tell me what the National Federation of the Blind was all about, and the great history that it was and is, and the great things that the NFB has done for blind people throughout history. I never knew that. I never knew things about our forefathers of the NFB and what things they had fought through with airlines and Social Security and the things that they have fought through to get people like me where I am today. And Scott was the first one to get me looking at some of those materials and get me interested. He represented my case along with the NFB, and I won a settlement. I was really proud of that, and I was really proud to meet Scott. And I feel like the NFB was there for me when I didn't have anybody and I needed somebody, and I always want to be there for them because of that reason. And I believe it's a worthwhile organization for all blind people, no matter what. And I am excited to be a part of it. I am proud to be the president of the state of Utah, and I think we're doing great things there, and that's really my story.
For more information about the National Federation of the Blind, please visit www.nfb.org or call 410-659-9314.